The film begins by presenting Ralphie, a young Uber driver, who crosses boundaries when he continues to gaze at a female passenger nursing her baby. The woman swiftly understands, tells him to stop, and hits him. Just another boring, unremarkable day at work for Ralphie. Afterward, he goes to the gym, where he constantly snaps selfies to monitor his progress. In the evening, he collects his expectant girlfriend S, who continually overwhelms him with grievances about their dull routine. Even when they're out buying baby items, she doesn't hold back on her critique. Even with her ongoing negativity, Ralphie always discovers a method to brighten her spirits. After another workout, Ralphie meets up with his friend Jason, his reliable source for prescription medication. It seems that Ralphie has a background of substance misuse, although the details are not clear. Jason informs him about a few individuals who could assist him in getting back on course. Interested, Ralphie decides to meet them and finds himself at a dinner organized by a man named Dan, who appears to be the head of the group. During the dinner, Ralphie shares that he recently lost a steady job and has been having a hard time making ends meet. Even with his challenges, he remains hopeful, particularly about becoming a father. Dan and the other guys raise a glass to his strength. As Ralphie watches the group, he sees that they all sport a tattoo, a triangle with a line above it. As the evening comes to a close and Ralphie is ready to go, Dan takes him aside, saying that he sees past his tough facade and understands he hasn't experienced genuine support before. Dan expresses that he was once in a similar situation and wants Ralphie to understand he's not by himself. This moment brings back a quick childhood memory for Ralphie. The following day at the gym, Jason gives Ralphie a pair of sneakers from Dan's group, a quiet indication that they've welcomed him. Later, Ralphie goes to Dan's place, where he meets the other members of the group living in what appears to be a close-knit communal home. Dan, whom everyone refers to as Papa, presents him to the others. They all discuss past challenges and difficulties they've faced, but as the dialogue changes, it becomes evident that many of them harbor strong bitterness toward women. One man reveals that his spouse was unfaithful to him several times, and another angrily refers to her with a derogatory term. After the talk, Ralphie roams around the house and comes across Dan's office, where he sees a gun on the desk. Rather than getting angry, Dan stays composed and keeps explaining the group's beliefs. He informs Ralphie that they exist as a family, connected not by blood, but by decision. Seeing Ralphie as someone who hides his hurt, Dan invites him to join their group. Back on his Uber shift, Ralphie picks up a young guy who's talking on the phone with his mom. The child appears shy and anxious. After the call concludes, Ralphie suggests he should strengthen himself and create an emotional barrier against life's challenges. As the boy exits the car, he unintentionally leaves behind his phone. Rather than bringing it back, Ralphie brings it to a pawn shop and sells it. Later, when he shares it with us, she's angry, accusing him of taking it. She states clearly that she doesn't want a guy like that bringing up her child. At the group's upcoming meeting, Ralphie undergoes a type of initiation ceremony meant to help him face his hidden anger. Initially, he's reluctant, but as Dan probes him with personal inquiries, Ralphie ultimately breaks down. He expresses frustration about how he never feels valued, resulting in an uncontrollable outburst. The men restrain him as he strikes out. After the ceremony, one of them inquires when he's intending to part ways with his girlfriend, a typical assumption for newcomers. Hoping to show his worth to Dan, Ralphie avoids picking S up from work. At the gym, Ralphie is doing his regular workout when a few guys request to switch the heavy metal music to something gentler. This infuriates him, and he almost gets into a confrontation with Ahmed, a regular who's been irritated by Ralphie's actions for some time. Later, Ralphie tracks Ahmed's vehicle and finds out where he is employed. Disregarding several calls from S, Ralphie passes by a gay nightclub and scowls at the couples outside. He still picks up two guys from the club as Uber riders. When they begin getting close in the back seat, Ralphie suddenly pulls over, kicks them out, and drives away quickly, disregarding their complaints. Back home, S questions Ralphie about his distance and cautions him that if he continues to behave this way, she'll begin to treat him similarly. On a different day, Ralphie is at the mall with Dan's crew when one of the guys, Brad, unexpectedly encounters his separated wife. She's obviously distressed, asking for a reason for why he departed without a word. As Brad attempts to soothe her, The other members of the group observe, appearing indifferent to the emotional clash. Dan walks off, annoyed, questioning why they always have to make themselves appear less significant than they truly are. Seeing Brad dispute with his wife, Ralphie begins to feel remorseful about how he's treated S, but Dan swiftly intervenes, encouraging Ralphie to finally take charge of his life. Heeding that advice, Ralphie confronts a man much larger than him in a restroom and fights him. As if that wasn't intense enough, he then assaults a mall Santa Claus with a pipe, the same guy who had been bothering him for days with his excessive holiday cheer. When he arrives home, S notices something is wrong and attempts to console him, but he rejects her. Rather than spending time with her, he begins to get ready to go out, which only frustrates her more. Ralphie pushes her against the wall, saying he has a power within him strong enough to build and obliterate, reflecting Dan's words. When she appears not to grasp the situation, he confines her in a room and goes directly to Dan's mansion, completely dedicated to becoming part of the group. His choice grants him the formal title of son, and as part of his initiation, he receives the group's distinctive branding seared onto his skin. To endure the pain, he recites their pledge, proclaiming themselves the legitimate leaders of the world, promising to never allow women to seize that power from them. Following the start, Ralphie goes to Dan's office and, with his consent, grabs a gun. As he gestures randomly, he shares details about his past, disclosing that his father left him one Christmas, leaving him to look after his mother. Seeing Ralphie's profound hurt, Dan motivates him to seek revenge for the young boy he used to be, to mend his former self so he never has to experience that hurt again. Overwhelmed with feeling, Ralphie begins to cry, and Dan instructs him to say a phrase, "There is no God, only Ralphie." Initially, Ralphie appears reassured by the words, but then, unexpectedly, he hits Dan, collects his belongings, and rushes out of the mansion, colliding with multiple parked cars as he drives off. Returning to his regular routine, Ralphie sees Ahmed at the gym and quietly trails him to his job. Entering the factory quietly, Ralphie heads to a hidden room where Ahmed unexpectedly catches him off guard from behind and begins kissing him. Ralphie pauses initially, but then surrenders to the moment. After they become close, Ahmed proposes they go on an actual date to learn more about one another. Ralphie's reply? He fires at Ahmed without a moment's hesitation. The following day, Ralphie arrives at the hospital, where S has just delivered their son, JC. He puts on a facade, pretending to be prepared to take charge and be a family man, trying to amend his previous errors. But one day, after completing some tasks, he returns home to discover S and their baby missing. Just a note left behind that plainly states, "Forgive me." Frantic, he dashes outside, bumping into a neighbor who's carrying his baby. She clarifies that S entrusted the child to her care. Now a solo dad, Ralphie falls into hopelessness and, with no other options, returns to Dan's group. The guys greet him warmly, excited to see him once more, particularly as they celebrate Christmas. Ralphie even allows Dan to hold his son, claiming that S is no longer involved. At the same time, Brad notes that police have been loitering in the area, inquiring about things, which makes Ralphie feel uneasy. Dan verifies that the police even showed up at the gym searching for him. Freaking out, Ralphie attempts to escape, but the door is secured. He draws his weapon and aims it at Dan, yet Dan stays unsettlingly composed, promising him that they'll assist him. The other men begin chanting their typical pledge as Ralphie aims the gun at himself, but in a quick choice, he turns and fires at Dan's head. At that moment, a police officer crashes through the door. Without a second thought, Ralphie shoots him as well, then hops into a car and races away, making his way to the woods. While he drives, memories of his childhood linger, tired and covered in dirt. He walks into a nursing home and heads directly to the kitchen, urgently looking for something to eat. A tall man named Satchel, one of the chefs, comes up to him and kindly offers assistance, if Ralphie is open to it. But instead of responding, Ralphie lifts the gun to his own head and pulls the trigger. The firearm clicks vacant. Out of energy, he falls to the ground. The following scene shows Ralphie as a resident in the nursing home, with Satchel designated as his caretaker. One day, Satchel shares a tale from his youth about how his dad once brought him fishing, but he ended up falling into the ocean. At that time, he was certain he was going to perish, seeing his father's boat float further away. But it was merely a trick. His father had never abandoned him and eventually brought him to safety.